Hi, this is Maria.
And this is Sheila.
And we want to welcome you to The Moms I Know,
Homeschool Edition.
We're so excited to bring this series of episodes focused on homeschooling. We're going to talk to you about what homeschooling is, whether this is right for your family, how to do it, and lots more.
So stay tuned. When the atmosphere encourages learning, the learning is inevitable. Elizabeth Foss.
So, we're ready to be starting the homeschool journey. We are probably starting with these thoughts of, okay, how do I set up my home?
Right. And so we want your home to look like learning is taking place. You want people to come in the house and say, wow, ask questions, be curious, because that's what we want our children to do. We want there to be open-ended questions. So sometimes when my kids were younger, they would wake up and we'd have our breakfast, and then we'd go to a table and there'd be things set up, things such as you'd have an art supply table ready for art projects. You are going to have a bookshelf that is going to be full of all different types of books, and you're going to make sure that these books are at a child's level. And you can even curate. There's these great Instagram accounts that basically have like monthly curated books. So I would always try to curate monthly. So I did this, even I have 2 children in high school and a 10-year-old, and I did this for October, where I got out all of our fall books about apples, and I got out our books about Halloween and Dia de los Muertos, and I just put them out there on our bench so that they can see it and they can feel it.
I love that you're still doing that, Sheila. That's great. I want to talk here also about, homeschool. We're not recreating the classroom at home. This is your home. We want you to be comfortable in your home. We don't want it to look like a schoolroom, unless that's, exactly how you really want to do it. But, in our home, we have different areas. So like Sheila was saying, the bookshelf, we've got the place where there's some simple toys. We've got the place where the musical instruments are going to rest. The kitchen is going to be where the cooking is going to be going on and the eating is happening, unless you have a separate dining room. And so, just especially in the early years, we want homeschooling to just be an extension of your regular family life. And so, at our home, we had the art cabinet. We had the music area in the living room. We had, and so these different areas, but we want there to be the places where your children can go and they know they can work on these projects. And so, I love that you said there's, the activities that are out, and then curating the bookshelf. I also want to put a little plug in here for simplifying. When you curate a bookshelf, that simplifies things for your child so that they're not overwhelmed with a huge room full of books. They've got a few choices, and that doesn't overwhelm their senses. It helps to create some form for them. It helps to, the child, their prefrontal cortex is still developing. So we have to help structure things. We can bring in rhythm and the things that are going to be resonating with them. And then we can let that unfold. So it's not recreating, as we talked about in an earlier episode about the classroom at your kitchen table. No, we want the child to be at home in their home, and then you're bringing the things to them in ways that resonate with them.
Exactly. And there are certain things that I do believe a homeschool classroom should have. And I want to say that, we knew friends that actually had a room that was their homeschool classroom. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of, so you can have and we have a very small house. And so we had an art cabinet as well, and we'd pull it out to the table, something like that. But I also want to say that there are certain things that I think created rhythm in our family when we homeschooled. And that was like paying attention to the seasons. Mm-hmm. Having a seasonal table, and maybe that seasonal table is not inside, but maybe it's outside. And so you can have found nature. I think nature in the early years, bringing that in, part of like that wild schooling stuff is really great for jumping off points. Another thing that I think is really important is a calendar. They have those in the early years, but having a calendar, and, I did several assignments with my children where they made their own calendar, and that's when you can see, what are significant dates. And so you can see how these little things, it's learning happening.
I'm so glad you brought that up. Also, we had a small house when our kids were growing up. So of course we had to be simplifying all the time. But if you have that space to dedicate, and also a place where children's projects can be set up and not have to be cleared away for the family meals. I think it's really nice to be able to have a table where puzzles can be left in process, or projects, or, you know, models that are being made, or things that are being built. And so, and we can get creative as well. So I know you have like a covered outdoor area. Santa Cruz, the weather is mild, and that covered outdoor area can be an area for so much incredible learning going on. And here in Montana, we don't have a covered outside area, but we have, you know, the shop. And so the woodworking, the tools, things like that are out in the shop. The kitchen is a focus for me always with kids. I think there's so much learning that can go on in the kitchen. Simple manipulatives, again, simple is better. We don't need tons of things, some beautiful games. But it's funny, when I'm thinking about this, I'm making this assumption that all of these things are things that people would have in their life anyhow. But I realize we do have to give this some thought. You know, not everybody does have a drawer full of board games. Not everybody does have the children's bookshelf, or, you know, the kid size utensils for the kitchen, because I know you do so much cooking with your family, and your kids have these beautiful tools and implements for the kitchen. So again, we get to think back to, you know, what are our family values? Where are the areas that we're going to be spending a lot of time? You know, some families might have an entire music room with the piano and the guitars and the marimbas and things like that, because that's their family value, that music is central.
Exactly. And that's where it's just like learning is like hands-on. It's I believe learning should be colorful. I believe it should be interactive. It should be full. And it's just like, we all come from, homeschooling is not just for, I mean, I think everybody can do that, and it needs to be full access, you know, accessibility. And I feel like you can touch on, you know, we can talk about that it's not a class, you know, just because you're able to have one parent at home, do you get a homeschool? No, we have seen it with 2 working parents. We have seen it with, not a lot of resources, and it's creative, you know.
Yeah. And, you know, some of the most successful homeschoolers I've seen, you know, single parents raising their child in a very small space, but they're out in the world, in the community, taking advantage of the library, the museums, the resources that are out there. I do want to bring up here that, you know, I personally am not a huge fan of a lot of online screen learning, especially in the early years. I believe that children need to be exploring, and it should be hands-on and play-based. And in the elementary years, very artistic and musical and theater and literature. As the children get older, that might come in the later years. And so, you know, a place where if they're going to be doing something online, you're watching what they're doing. You're very carefully overseeing the screen time. So I did want to bring that in.
Yeah, no, that's key, because I know like YouTube is an amazing, it's an amazing resource, but it is the second most, after Google, it's the second most popular search engine. And so you really have to keep an eye on it. But there are some amazing, and we're going to put this in the resource of our book, actually, some amazing YouTube channels that are science and history, and just that I have some of my students that are just like, these are the best things ever. So it has its place, but you also have to be diligent in making sure that its learning is taking place, and it's not just for entertainment, because there are some things there that you don't want your children watching.
Especially in the high school year. Well, in the elementary year, but we didn't even have that for our kids when they were young. But then in the high school years, I think that they can be really misused as well. So we did want to talk about that a little bit.
So another place about the learning environment is your outside area, you know, physical fitness, you know, body smart, you know, kinesthetic learning, like that is important. So, you know, do you have access to bikes? Do you have scooters? Do you have things that are bringing your children outside and being active? I think that is part of learning. We move our body, and, you know, we're able to, I mean, how many times, I love this actually, is that I would, we'd be learning, my son would be maybe get a little stuck, you know, kind of, you know, upset, you know, kind of tears, and you're like, oh my gosh, what, you know, thinking, how do I do this? And I'd say, go run down the block to the stop sign and come back. Go jump on the trampoline, 20 jumps, come back. You know, really using that so that they are able to get out that energy and then come back and learn for a little bit longer.
Yeah, outdoor education is so pivotal, especially for young children. And this idea of, we can do focused activities and then they're more contracted and then, more open-ended where they're outdoors. And so, kind of finding that rhythm in your day too. And for very young children, they need lots of time outdoors. They need lots of time moving their body. And we might just have a very short period of time where it's focused instruction. And also I want to bring up, in a classroom, there's, 25 to 35 children together. So there's these periods of time where they're trying to bring everybody together. Well, when you're at home with your children, you don't need to have blocks of time in that same way. So if you're doing something and the time is just flowing, you go with it. If 10 minutes is enough, you can stop and you can change to something else. So really, you want to set up your environment for flow.
Yeah, and it is that transition time that really takes so much time in the classroom. Where we have both seen that in the classroom, where then the kids come in and they move classes or they're going on to a different subject, and it's like sometimes that can take 10-15 minutes to get down. And we always say connection before correction, and so that happens as well when you're sitting at the table with your own child.
Right. Also for movement indoors, I know you've got like your yoga hammock can be an incredible activity for kids, or a little mini trampoline in the house. Yeah. So anyhow, thinking about, so we talked about physical education, art, music, kind of theater arts types of things, math activities with games, with the kitchen. And then also just the whole concept of, now so much is online, but the old-fashioned encyclopedia, the National Geographics, the Globe, these things that are hands-on that your children can look at, maps.
Yeah, those are I kind of call those in our book, we like learning tools. We always have had a magnifying glass on our coffee table, so that we're able to look, the compass, the telescope, the microscope, the scale. We use the scale, a lot of my homeschooling with the kids was baking and cooking and stuff. And so it would be the scale was a great thing. Oftentimes we would measure the science table, we'd measure the rainfall for the winter, take a weather log sort of stuff, observation table with found nature is always good. The one thing I want when we're talking about kind of things, ideas, is the puppets shows. I mean, I don't know how many times I did puppet shows with learning and history and everything like that. That was really creative as well.
Right. That's beautiful language arts for our young children. And then also, writing utensils. And here, a little bit of my Waldorf background, I think things should be beautiful for children. And I think that, you can get these gorgeous beeswax crayons and really nice paper. And you can also get creative and, find things that are going to work for them. But just to have the space for them to be able to draw, to write, to create, and then also to be working with beautiful objects, I think it's important.
Yeah, and I think you have the pride involved with that. You have responsibility because you're taking care. Because I remember actually in the classroom, one of the things, school supplies was a set of pencils, but they were not your regular colored pencils. They were a set, that was like 2 to 3 times more, but you could tell the quality. And I know those were very special and they had them throughout the year.
Yeah, I think that when we help our children understand that, this is a high quality thing, we're going to take care of it, instead of that box of colored pencils or crayons that we've collected from everybody that we know. And, it's not revered as much. And so when they have their very own special case of either beeswax crayons or the really nice Lyra pencils, they take care of them in a different way. And so we want to foster that respect and care with our children, just as we do with, all of the things in our home.
Yeah. And I think that really plays into, getting away from the throwaway culture. Where it's just like, oh, it was just 50 cents. It doesn't matter. And you get rid of it. But, oh no, those are really special. We're going to keep those and we're going to have those the whole year because they last. And I'm going to keep my eye on that.
Mm-hmm. So, we want you to have fun with setting up your environment. If your home isn't already kind of set up this way for your children, you can give it some thought. You can take some time to get creative. Like I said, simple is best. You don't need lots and lots of things. You can take advantage of your libraries, the museums. A lot of times local natural history museums will even lend out kits of things. So I know, if you're doing an example on maybe some local history or something, they might have a little box of objects that you can check out for a few weeks if you're doing a unit on that. And so, you don't have to go out and buy a whole lot of things. You can just have a few beautiful, simple things and get creative.
Yep, I agree.
And it's so much fun. And you said something at the beginning, Sheila, when people come in and they're like, oh my gosh, what's going on here? And I think that that's important for people to know that your home is a place where there's learning going on everywhere. So.
Exactly. It's like we for I want to say years, but we had the sewing machine out, and it was just like, and that was, the kids would sew in the evening or in the morning, so it was just a part of our family rhythm.
Great. So, well, lots to think about. And so we will talk to you next time
on The Moms I Know.
Bye. Thanks so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode and got a lot out of it.
And if you want to learn more about homeschooling, we are super excited to share our new homeschool handbook, talking about the basics of homeschool, how to set up your homeschool, and even our real life stories of our own homeschool experiences.
So you can check that out at www.themomsiknow.com. And we look forward to hearing more from you and getting your insights and questions.
And if you can, we want you to share this. We want you to share about the homeschool handbook and share about the Moms I Know. And if you can, rate us on iTunes. We would be so appreciative. Thank you. We are so grateful for our listeners like you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.